Yeah, my theory is that Elizabeth Holmes should be held accountable. You know, she's been called out for faking test results and for misleading the public and investors, and she's been indicted for that. You know, and so her being on trial is a good thing for consumers, for investors. But this industry that she's in, the tech industry, is sexist and discriminatory. So it's no surprise that only a woman would be held accountable. And my point is that, we need to take this opportunity to look at the industry and decide that we need to actually hold more men accountable. And we need to make sure that we're indicting and investigating, and also as investors, holding our CEOs accountable.
And yeah, certainly the argument makes sense from an investor standpoint. But I guess my question is from a legal standpoint, isn't some of the challenge that a lot of the behavior, though questionable, though possibly unethical, was not technically illegal, especially some of those founders that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think that there are standards that we should be holding people to. I think the standards, we're not following through on them. If you look at Juul, you have a company that sold flavors that appealed to kids. Parents reported that Juul went to schools to train kids to convince other kids to vape, and they told kids that and they were telling kids that vaping is safe. Numbers went up for vaping in schools for high school age, and the smoking use had gone down, but you saw it was being replaced by kids vaping. And it's a product that's kind of similar to Theranos. It's a product that's designed for consumers. It's designed for, it's regulated by the FDA. And you don't see the Juul CEO in trouble at all. You see the company is facing a bunch of lawsuits, but we need to be holding the CEOs accountable for doing the same types of harm. It shouldn't have to come to the point where we're giving people bad blood results. It should be coming earlier for negligent behavior, for grossly negligent behavior, for behavior that can harm the public.
Yeah, Ellen, your point is well made when it comes to all these other CEOs. But I guess going back to Elizabeth Holmes, do you think there's something either about this trial or the way the media is covering this trial that is particularly sexist, taking the other CEOs and putting them to the side?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I think a lot of what she's faced has been, this hype. It's been very, a lot of focus on her looks, on her behaviors, a lot of focus on her personal life. And that is something that, I don't know anything about Kevin Burns' personal life. I don't know much about these other CEOs, but we know a lot about Elizabeth Holmes. I think there's something that is gendered about that. I don't know that, that she should escape scrutiny. I just wish that we were scrutinizing all of the behaviors and all of the people in tech equally, and that we were also paying this attention to the men who have been harming people and who are still getting away with it. I think one of the problems is we continue to invest in these men. So Kevin Burns just started another job less than a year after leaving Juul. His old company is facing thousands of lawsuits around the harm that they've caused children and people. And he's running a new startup and doing fine. I think people should be held accountable for the harm that they cause. And I don't see that happening. I'm glad we're doing it for Elizabeth Holmes. I don't think that she should be alone in this category.
Ellen, thanks again for being with us. I don't think you have a good point because when I look at some of the examples that you give, WeWork, Uber, Facebook, Tesla, they all actually have a product or service that does what they say it's going to do. Now, maybe you could argue about WeWork's business model. You could argue that Uber's not, the culture was bad. It wasn't as much as it's hyped up to be. It's still a multi-billion-dollar company with technology that fundamentally changed transportation. Same goes for Facebook and Tesla. What if this Elizabeth Holmes case is actually more like Bernie Madoff, whose personal life did really get, poked into and examined for good reason? Now, she's on trial now and has not been proven guilty, so I want to be careful with that. But isn't there an issue here with whether there's fundamentally a product or not?
Every company starts out without a product. So when venture people invest, there is no product. We're all, putting money into companies that we're hoping that they're able to come through with a product. So there's part of it is a problem with venture where There's this desire to believe people who have these amazing stories and who have these huge visions and who are charismatic, and we want to believe that they're going to succeed, and our livelihood depends on it. We need to be able to have more funding come in. We need this CEO to continue to be charismatic and continue to overpromise, and we hope they end up delivering. In Elizabeth Holmes' case, she was not able to deliver. In Uber's case, the business model still doesn't quite work. And we saw that with Juicero. They had a product that didn't really do very much. I think there is a question: is this product, because it's in the medical world, held to a higher standard than in all of these other companies where you've got harm happening, but it's not a medical product? You're not testing blood. You're not holding people's lives at stake. But if you look at Uber, they had all these sexual assault cases from drivers harming their customers, and they didn't do anything about it. I would argue that that's equally as bad as some of the harm that's being caused at Theranos.